Chilling tales for dark nights.
Want to make sure you never miss a Chilling Tales for Dark Nights video again? Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell to turn on notifications.
It's time to turn off the lights and turn on the dark.
Chilling tales for dark nights.
Good evening, listener. You're listening to Chilling Tales for Dark Nights. On tonight's edition, we invite you to leave behind your safe reality and descend with us into the frightening depths of the most terrifying imaginations, with 2 audio adaptations of frightening fiction about persisting pasts and fatal fortunes. I'm your host for this evening, Otis Chirey, stepping in for my very good friend Steve Taylor. And tonight I'll be your guide as we traverse the dimly lit corridors of your darkest dreams.
This episode of Chilling Tales for Dark Nights is brought to you by Best Fiends. Listen, guys, if you still haven't played Best Fiends, we need to have a little intervention here. All you listeners already on board, you're excused. You already know how excellent Best Fiends is. You've already been acquainted with the pleasures of Match 3 puzzlery. In essence, you've achieved a higher plane of existence and are well down the path to enlightenment. But to think about that there are still people out there who don't have Best Fiends, just imagine, with the very best Match 3 style puzzle/adventure game ever created, just sitting there in the App Store waiting to download for free. It's horrifying to imagine that some people still haven't taken advantage. It's chilling, frankly. More chilling than any story you'll ever hear on this podcast. It chills me to the very marrow of my bones. It's a travesty, and I mean to put an end to it right now. Best Fiends isn't a game for gamers, folks. It's a game for everyone. And if there's one thing everyone loves to do, it's matching puzzles. In Best Fiends, you match 3 or more items on your puzzle-loving board to deal delicious devastation to the slugs, the bad guys, using your army of evolving fiends, the good guys. As you progress, you'll build your team of fiends, unlock achievements, and solve increasingly harder puzzles. Your fiends begin the game as babies, but as you blast through levels of slugs, they evolve and become more powerful. With the keys and gold you earn, you can upgrade them and enhance their powers. And matching 3 is merely the minimum, friends. Take it from me, there's nothing like stringing together a mile of strawberries and unleashing Slugmageddon on the baddies. It makes you feel so good. Once in a while I get such a good one, I think my phone's gonna burst with slug slime. And the fun never ends. There are thousands of levels, each with new challenges and achievements, and raising level after level, you can't help but feel you're ascending to new planes of enlightenment. Take me, for example. I'd tell you which level I've reached, but I'm so highly evolved, my enlightenment forbids me to brag. Basically, I'm like Buddha, sitting cross-legged on a Himalayan mountain peak, tapping away at my phone. And before that raises an eyebrow, let me assure you there's no data or Wi-Fi required to play, so you can ascend to any mountaintop you choose. Also, no shame in playing in the bathroom. Even the most elevated among us still sit on our bottoms. So what's the holdup, folks? Best Fiends is free to download, so you can join me and 100 million others who've taken the path to Match 3 enlightenment. You'll be glad you did. Download Best Fiends free today on the App Store or Google Play. That's friends without the R. Best Fiends. Thank you for your support, fellow fiends, and for supporting the sponsors that make this show possible.
Joining us tonight to help bring to life the frightening fiction of Daniel Edgars and Tony Logan are voice talents Jesse Cornett, Nick Goroff, Olivia Steele, Melissa Medina, and Paul J. McSorley. Now, get your ticket ready, take your seat in our theater of the minds, and brace yourself. It's time to turn off the lights and turn on the dark. Our first story tonight is written by Daniel Edgars and is performed by Jesse Cornett, Nick Goroff, and Olivia Steele. In it, we'll meet a man named Anthony. During a night of heavy drinking, he begins to receive notes that he believes to be a prank. As the night continues, a horrible memory surfaces, and he realizes that someone, or something, wants to speak to him. Anthony starts to realize that you can never run from your past, no matter how deep you bury it. Without further ado, I present to you 4 Words.
4 Words. Narrated by Jesse Cornett. It began when they took me from my home and put me in dead row, of which I am nearly wholly innocent, you know. Nick Cave and the bad seats.
Give me the key to this Chevy, Ant. You aren't driving that thing anywhere. You're toasted.
Anthony looked at his old buddy Pete with quiet indignation and relinquished the keys to his truck, partially because Pete was a straight shooter, always had been, and partially because there were currently 2 of him.
Sure, you got it, Pete.
Anthony said with a laugh. The twin Petes did not laugh.
Get to stepping, buddy. I'll call Susie and tell her you're on your way.
That's a terrible idea.
Anthony said, throwing his hands up with exaggerated alarm.
I'll catch hell. Just give me my house key off of that ring, and I'll get out of your hair.
I lost my hair because of friends like you years ago, Ant.
Pete said, finally relinquishing a smile. Pete had a nasty habit of scaring off potential new customers with his trademark resting bitch face, or RBF as the regulars called it. He was a prematurely bald fellow, but it didn't look wrong on him. 6 feet and 250 pounds of bearded Americana. With his white apron on, he was your stereotypical small-town working-class bartender, a stereotype he did not mind perpetuating.
Here you go anyhow, Chief,
Pete said, with a sniff, sliding the key across the bar to Anthony. As he scooped his key off the polished oak, he looked up and caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror behind the bar.
Jesus. I sure do look the part,
he said, scratching at his chin. Anthony's neat hair had fallen out of its normal combed-back style and was a bird's nest atop his head. His cheeks were flushed and his ears were red. A 5 o'clock shadow had developed on his previously clean-shaven face. Anthony was handsome enough, dimpled chin and a strong jawline. His college baseball days were behind him, but he was still in shape. His eyes were a unique hazel, more green than brown. But now, his unique eyes were bloodshot, and if you put enough booze in Tom Cruise, he'll still look like shit. The thought of explaining his current condition to his wife weighed heavily on his mind. Luckily, the pair of Petes saved the day with sober reason.
Shit, yeah, you look the part,
Pete said.
Wash up and get the hell home, Ant.
On his way to the men's room, Anthony heard what sounded like someone getting sick. The person inside the John was moaning. It sounded to Anthony like a ghost from a bad campfire story.
Hey, did you eat some of Pete's cooking? You gotta be new here.
Anthony called out, stifling a laugh. No answer, and the moaning continued. Anthony tried the doorknob, finding it locked. He realized he had to take a leak. He began to knock.
Hey, fella. I'm not shy, and I need to make water, man. Light a match if you have to. I just want to use the pisser.
Anthony knocked harder still, causing the thin plywood door to shake in its frame.
Hey, honestly, pal, I'm gonna piss my pants if this door doesn't get unlocked. I need to go.
The moaning continued, unchanged.
Fucking hell. Pete!
Anthony cried.
What do you need, Ant? Too drunk to work the toilet?
Pete answered with a laugh.
Hardy fucking har. You got a stew bum passed out in the commode with a goddamn door locked.
Pete didn't respond.
Peter!
Anthony called out.
I'm gonna take a whiz on your floor if you don't get back here and open this damn thing.
Bullshit, you will. I'll have your ass.
Too late, Pete. It's happening.
Anthony called out in a sing-song voice. Peter appeared at the end of the hallway, his bald head turning bright red, and made his way quickly to the men's room door.
You don't tip me enough to be your goddamn doorman, too, you know?
Pete said with a wink, fumbling through his keys.
Either way, here's the throne room, your majesty.
The bathroom door swung in to reveal an empty room. The stall door stood open with no one inside.
What the hell?
Anthony said, walking in, already looking for the source of the noise. Peter watched his blitzed friend search under the sink, behind the 3-foot-tall wastebasket, and finally, in the toilet bowl.
Pete, I swear to God that...
Don't. Ant, this joke didn't work, but I'm not mad.
Pete began making his way back down the hallway. Watching Peter leave without a word, Anthony made his way to the corner of the restroom where the urinal stood. As he did the deed, he noticed a folded piece of yellow legal paper tucked behind the flusher. He unfolded it and stared at a single letter scrawled across the scrap. A.
Hey, huh? Well, isn't that neat? He left me a $5 or something. Mr. Disappearing Man.
Without thinking about it, he stuffed the note into his jeans and left, being sure to leave the door open. A round of see-you-laters followed Anthony out the door as he left Pete's bar. He started to walk towards his house, only a few blocks down the street. Then he remembered he was leaving the truck and spun on his heels. He made it to the vehicle and checked the driver's side door, finding it locked. He chuckled. Good, he thought. No one will be able to get his precious collection of burned CDs and loose change. He walked around to the passenger side door, checked the handle, and discovered a piece of paper tucked inside.
Let me guess.
He mumbled.
B.
B. It was not. Written in the same sweeping handwriting as the note in the bathroom was the word, we. Anthony jammed the paper in his pocket and stormed back towards the bar to see if Pete or the guys knew anything about the notes. He arrived at the large door and yanked at the handle, flinging it open dramatically. He let out a frightened squeak. The bar was completely empty. Tables wiped clean, chairs stacked, glasses and mugs spotless on their shelves behind the bar. There was no smell of beer or burned burgers. It was like being inside a picture.
Guys?
Anthony said, panic causing his voice to hitch. No one answered.
Who the hell is leaving me these notes?
He called out. Any buzz left in him had been scared away.
Why am I getting fucked with?
He continued to ask the empty room. A pained moan was his only reply. His balls jumped into his body as his feet left the floor.
What the hell is this?
Anthony bellowed, trying his best to sound tough, but sounding more like a petulant little kid. The sound came again, from behind the bar. gritty and grinding like an old door opening. In an ungraceful leap, Anthony landed prone on top of the bar, landing on an ashtray and winding himself. His legs draped over the stools. He took a sharp breath in and peeked behind the bar. Nothing was back there, not even a bottle cap on the floor. Seeing this, Anthony got up and sprinted for the door. Once outside, he took a breath and pulled out his cell. No service flashed at him from the screen. He took off down the street towards his house, pumping his legs as hard as he could. He approached the first of 2 crosswalks he would have to pass before arriving home. He began to slow to make sure he wouldn't get flattened by a car, when he noticed there were no cars or traffic of any kind, and a shadow was making its way towards him. It looked like the world had a man-shaped hole in it, as if God had used the earth as its construction paper for a flat Stanley cutout. It was close in shape to a gingerbread man, but instead of nice, round hands and feet, this shadow had cruel spikes for fingers and terrible clawed toes. As this thing approached Anthony, it walked steadily, and it began to take on more definition and an awful smell. The once shuffling gait had evolved into a smooth pace, and the long arms and the spiked hands had ceased resting at the creature's sides. They were now raised, and the fingers were fidgeting, anxious to find something to grab. The familiar moaning began to project from the living shadow. It moved at him, faster now. Its body made no sounds as it moved, no footfalls, no shuffling of feet or swishing of fabric, only the horrible moaning. The musty smell of warm river water and mud began to coat the back of Anthony's throat. Anthony didn't wait for the monster's searching claws. He took off in another dead sprint. His lungs were on fire. His legs felt as if they were filled with broken glass. His heart was beating so hard in his throat, he was afraid he would gag. As his body burned, his phone began to ring. He risked a glance behind him. He had lost the shadow. The caller ID showed unavailable. He answered, not caring who it was. The need to hear a human voice was vital.
Don't fucking moan, please.
Anthony began, badly winded.
Tell me I'm being audited or that my fucking dog died. Just don't fucking moan.
First, there was soft static, then a voice which sounded like cicadas singing, worked together to speak. The fear left Anthony for a moment and was replaced by a confused rage.
What? What the hell does that mean? Who are you?
The cicadas answered.
Where are all my friends? What did you do to everyone?
A young woman's voice answered him this time.
You will be alone, just like us, Anthony. You will understand.
Anthony's stomach did a rough flip and settled itself. Anthony understood, but didn't believe it. It had been 14 years since his accident. It had been 14 years since he heard that awful moaning. She was walking towards Anthony's truck off the shoulder, being sure to keep her face towards oncoming traffic, and Anthony was too drunk to notice her. He was driving like an 18-year-old does on an old farm road, fast and free. 1 second of negligence was all it took. Anthony had reached down to pull another Miller Tallboy off the plastic six-pack rings. Then there was a loud thump, which shook the vehicle and jerked the wheel.
What the hell? Oh, God.
He slammed the brakes hard and got out to see the damage and the size of the deer he had struck. When his boots hit the gravel, he heard the moaning. He crossed to the passenger side of the truck, and the moaning grew louder, and the smell of shit and blood hit his nose.
Help us.
She said, choking.
You've gotta help us. Please.
She held her stomach gingerly. The all-too-obvious bump of pregnancy was now misshapen, like a half-deflated football. Her hair, brown and curly, was plastered to the side of her face with blood. Her jaw trembled. She couldn't have been more than 25. Her dark skin and full lips were illuminated by Anthony's taillights, the red glow muting what would have otherwise been an incredibly harsh red scene. She was beautiful even then. Her slender frame was warped. The truck had done its damage. Her legs were twisted and broken, and her hips were so far out of place it made her look as though she were smuggling produce under her jeans. Jeans which darkened as a rapidly growing stain spread from her knees and up to her groin and wrapping around her waist.
Fuck no. No way. No way. No way. Oh.
Anthony mumbled, his eyes wide but dry. His hands were shaking, so he pulled them in against his chest and crouched beside her. He began to rock back and forth.
Help us.
She choked, her teeth becoming more red with every word.
I'm 6 months. He's healthy. Go get someone.
She looked at him, staring, waiting for a reply.
Okay. Let me get you into the truck. Wait. Should I move you? Oh shit. Oh shit. I don't know what to do.
She didn't respond. She just kept staring at him, past him. She was gone. Her body settled, laying perfectly still and silent. The only sounds on the stretch of road were the clunky idling of Anthony's truck and the singing of the cicadas. They had been everywhere that spring and early summer, loud, noisy, and ever-present. Strange creatures showing themselves sporadically, some annually, some taking almost 2 decades to come forth from the ground and scream their unwanted music. Now, they sang their song to this broken woman. No eulogy for her and her unborn son, just the grating cry of the cicadas. Anthony worked quickly, not thinking, panic driving his body. He rolled her off the side of the road and down into the deep irrigation ditch, long out of use. There was a splash, and he watched her body rise to the top like a fishing bobber.
No. No, no.
He scrambled along the shoulder of the road, found a few heavy rocks, and ran down the hill and into the water. He made his way to the woman with one of the rocks in hand and stuffed it beneath her hooded sweatshirt. He felt her cold, wet skin and the lumpy presence of broken bones beneath it, and recoiled, then vomited. The smell of brackish water and thick mud was so overpowering, the smell of recently expelled beer was nearly canceled out. He continued his work until she sank and stayed at the bottom. He watched for a moment and decided it was good enough, returned to his truck to check the damage. He dug his fingers deep into the earth, pulling himself up the bank, cursing himself for being so stupid, and cursing the woman for walking along the dirt road in the middle of the night.
She on the side of the road.
The front end looked nearly perfect. The old steel frames were sturdy and unforgiving. There was a small dent in the chrome bumper, but nothing that anyone would notice. He had thought for certain there would be blood on his truck, but there was none. It was all over the asphalt. He looked down at the dark spot on the road and dry heaved. The metallic smell of blood climbing into his nose and down his throat. After checking the front end out, he got into his truck and drove faster than he had before. He drove like a man possessed, passing drivers on double yellow streets when he was back in town and cutting through the church parking lot to get to his parents' house. He parked behind the garage and walked through the back door into the kitchen. His father sat at the small table doing a crossword and greeted him without looking up from the paper.
How we doing, pal? I didn't think we'd see you tonight. Heard there was a party out in the McManus's back field. There's leftovers on the stove.
He stopped mid-sentence and coughed. He thumbed at his now wrinkled nose. He smelled foul pond water, beer, and vomit. He looked up to his son and saw the dried mud that covered his hands and the dark water that dripped from his pants. Before he could say a word, Anthony fell to the linoleum floor sobbing. His jeans began to bleed brown liquid. It spread about like the tendrils of evil looking for prey. His father moved his socked foot away from one of the dark trails of water, and Anthony told him everything. His father's response was grim, but not unexpected.
No one knows, and no one's gonna know, Anthony.
His father said, reaching for his keys.
You aren't throwing your scholarship away on some girl. Not now. You're leaving for school in a couple weeks. You tell me where she is, and I'll take care of the rest.
So Anthony told him. His father had done what he said he would, and never spoke of that night again. Anthony left for college 2 weeks after, and made himself forget. And it stayed forgotten. 2 state championships and a whole lot of partying helped. Meeting a girl, getting married, and buying a house sealed the deal. It was all buried deep down and locked away in a casket in his consciousness. Now, for some reason, it was getting dug up, and the memory was kicking and scratching at the lid, desperate to sink its rotten nails and broken teeth into Anthony's soft, vulnerable mind. He would remember. The static faded back in, slowly at first. Then it was louder than a jet engine. Anthony howled in pain and dropped his phone. Using both hands, he covered his ears and pressed hard, as if to keep his brain from oozing out. He stumbled backwards and fell on his rear. The deafening white noise was pervasive. He felt it in the fillings of his teeth and in his guts. The phone began to vibrate from the magnitude of the sound and scoot along the sidewalk. Suddenly, the static stopped, and Pete's voice issued from the phone.
Have,
Pete said calmly.
have we?
Anthony started to cry and picked up his phone.
Petey, where are you? What are they doing to you, Pete?
Calmly, again.
Have we?
Pete, I don't understand. You gotta help me here. I don't fucking understand.
His voice was choked with tears. He began to cry harder.
Pete! me where you are!
Silence.
Please?
We have a...
Pete's voice trailed off, and there was a click. Then silence.
Fuck this.
Anthony thought as he took off running towards his home.
I'm going to go home. I'm gonna get my Remington and go look for Pete and the guys. They have to be somewhere, right? It doesn't make any goddamn sense. None of this makes any goddamn sense. Susie is gonna think
His trail of thought snagged. He stopped dead in the middle of the last crosswalk.
Susie! Oh Christ! Susie!
He resumed running. This time, he didn't notice any pain in his legs, or his heart, or his lungs. He only thought about Susie. Susie grabbed up by the shadow.
That fucking moaning thing. That stupid moaning bitch that took Pete and the guys and left me all those stupid fucking notes. The notes!
Anthony's mind screamed.
Those notes! Peter was trying to warn me about something. But what? We have a what, Pete?
Anthony said as he approached the back door to his home. He tried the door and it was locked. Thank God for that, he thought as he pulled the key from his pocket. Thank God for that.
Susie's okay. She's gonna think I'm a nut, but she's okay.
He unlocked his door and pushed it open with such force it slammed against the wall of the kitchen.
Susie? Where are you, honey? I need your help.
He waited for a reply for a moment and began to feel a chill run up his back. The silence was too blanketing. It was everywhere. The silence was too loud. Anthony quickly turned and shut the door, locked it, and took off for the bedroom.
Maybe she's asleep,
he thought. His breath was ragged as he walked up the stairs. Fear made Anthony's vision tunnel. He could see light leaking out from under the bedroom door. Her light's on. She must have fallen asleep reading. He mounted the top of the stairs and walked to the door. He tried to turn the handle, but his palms were so sweaty that it slipped. He wiped his hands on his shirt, grabbed it again, turned, and pushed the door open. The bed was made, but empty. In the middle of the bed was a folded piece of yellow paper. Anthony could hear nothing but the thud of his heart as he approached to pick up his note. As he got closer, he began to recite in a dry, croaky voice he didn't recognize.
We have a... We have a...
He tried to swallow, but his mouth had gone dry. There was a click in his throat.
What exactly do you fuckers have?
He unfolded the paper, and his hands began to shake. His body broke out in goosebumps. The hair on his neck stood on end. Written on the paper was the only word that had mattered. Key. Anthony began to scream as the closet door behind him creaked open, and the cicadas began to sing.
I hope you enjoyed Four Words, as written by Daniel Edgars and voiced by Jesse Cornett, Nick Goroff, and Olivia Steele. If you enjoyed Mr. Cornett's performance, you can hear more of him on the Chilling Tales YouTube channel as well as on the NoSleep podcast, where you can hear his vocal performances as well as production. Voice actor and 2016 Evil Idol champion Edgars' talents can be found on our very own Chilling Tales for Dark Nights YouTube channel, as well as on past episodes of the Simply Scary podcast. You can also join Nick on his YouTube channel, Wizard of Cause. If you drop by, don't forget to let him know you heard about him here. You can hear more from Olivia Steele right here on our very own network, as well as on her YouTube channel called Scarily Olivia. Our second tale of the evening is written by Tony Logan and performed by Melissa Medina and Paul J. McSorley. In it, we will meet Madison, a girl who gets a cryptic text from her husband that they need to talk. She fears the worst, but once home, her husband explains Madison's troubles are over. Her husband just wants to spend some time together. Now, without further ado, I present to you Hitting It Big.
This episode of Chilling Tales for Dark Nights is proudly brought to you by Killer Psyche, a new podcast from Wondery. Well, friends, the season of love is almost upon us. It's time for the little ones to make messy but colorful cards for their classmates. Time for parents to celebrate their unity, love, and perseverance through the parallels of parenting. It would be quite normal to stare at your partner longingly as you give mental thanks that you don't have to live a life without them. However, in some cases, the opposite is true. In fact, some couples are capable of murder. What goes through someone's mind when they're determined to speed up the "till death do us part" adage? Well, that's what I'm here to talk about. Killer Psyche is a true crime podcast from Wondery that explores these types of questions about the crimes that killers and criminals commit. It offers high-profile cases that shock the world, and host Candice DeLong uses her 5 decades of experience as a clinical psychiatric nurse and FBI criminal profiler to dissect the motivations and behaviors of the most terrifying felons in history. The world is full of cases of missing spouses, and one of the latest episodes recounts the tale of the mysterious murder of Ted Ammon, a wealthy Wall Street financier. Ted and his wife of 13 years, Generosa, had been through a divorce with millions in assets and child custody were at stake, but Generosa died of cancer before police could prove her involvement. How does hatred drive a person to murder the father of their children? As someone who's been married as long as I have, with kids of my own, I couldn't help but ask myself the same question. Listen to the Killer Psyche podcast on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, or listen 1 week early and ad-free by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app.
He texted, "We have to talk," which normally in relationships means the end is near. My heart pounded in my chest all the way home. I played out the different scenarios in my head. Did he think I cheated on him? And with who? My mind raced with all the recent conversations I had had with others. Halfway home, I skidded into a parking lot and combed through my voice messages, texts, and IMs just to see if there was a piece of conversation that could have been misconstrued. There weren't any. I don't have many male friends, so unless he thought I was switching to the other team, but even then I would have to ask, with who? I jumped back on the highway, almost home, when I thought maybe it could be good news. Jeff was trying for a promotion. He recently spent a few late nights out with his supervisor discussing new strategies for the upcoming quarter. He also changed his hairstyle and even lightened the tips. Assuming it was a midlife crisis, I left it alone. Still safer than a motorcycle or a new sports car. The only new purchases were some odds and ends from Home Depot for the backyard pond. When I finally rolled into the driveway, my breathing quickened. Lightheaded and sweaty, I checked the vanity and pulled myself together. A strange car sat parked in the driveway. "Everything is fine, Madison. Everything is fine." I unlocked the front door and entered, unsure of what I'd find. There, on the front table, was an arrangement of lilacs. My favorite. Jeff sat on the back porch, texting someone on a cheap flip phone. "What are you doing, babe?" I chuckled. "What's with the 90s phone?" He jumped. I must have startled him.
Hi, Maddie. Yeah, I dropped mine in the bathroom at work today, honey. I'm a mess.
He snickered. "So, everything's okay? What do we need to talk about? And whose car is that?"
Okay, first, give me your phone.
He held out his hand. "Who are you going to call? Use your Ross Geller phone," I teased.
I'm not calling anyone.
He smiled.
I have some news and I don't want you to tell anyone. Not yet, anyway. And the car is a rental. I'll explain.
I hesitantly handed him my phone, not sure where this was going. He took it, swiped through the text messages, and then took the battery out. "Hey, what the fuck, Jeff?"
Wait, honey.
He motioned to the deck chair.
Sit down for me.
I sat on the blue Atadoric next to him. He kneeled.
Babe?
A large smile crept over his face.
I did it. We won.
Won what?
You always make fun of me for buying those scratcher tickets from Tiny Place up the road.
The realization washed over me. You don't mean you won 20 grand?
No, babe.
He laughed again.
70 million. The big one.
Adrenaline surged through me. My body began to shake all over. Oh my God, this can't be real. A dream. Warm tears rolled down my cheeks as years of stress melted. The house, the cars, my job, his job, all turned to dust in my mind. Visions of tropical beaches and a huge garden with rescue animals dashing all over. Just me and Jeff. I just can't believe it. Is that why you stayed home today from work? Of course. It all makes sense.
Yeah, honey. Now we have to play this very cool, okay? You can't tell anyone about this. No one.
Not even my mom? I mean, she'll flip.
No one. Not yet. I have to set us up with a lawyer, an accountant, and we have to hide until I can collect the check. Otherwise, we'll be crawling with people wanting to borrow or steal from us.
Jeff was a planner, especially when it came to money. He joked that we'd never get a divorce. He couldn't afford it. We'd laugh.
I have a cabin set up. We'll stay there for a week or so while the paperwork is completed. Are you good with that?
Hell yeah. I kissed him, then ran into the house. I began to pack bags when Jeff came in.
What are you doing?
He asks. Packing.
Babe, we won't need any of this. Throw it all away. Go ahead.
He yanked 2 drawers open.
Throw these clothes on the ground. You're better than this now.
I fought back more tears. I was so happy. I started pulling all the old clothes out of the drawers and throwing them everywhere. Jeff even got in on the act. He flipped a table, smashed a lamp, even broke the back door as he ran out back to get his drink off the patio. He loaded up the pond digging supplies into the back of the rented car. He said he wants to return them to the supply store this week while we're at the cabin. Even this wealthy, he's responsible with his money.
I hope you enjoyed Hitting It Big, as written by Tony Logan and voiced by Melissa Medina and Paul J. McSorley. To find out more of author Tony Logan, visit simplyscarypodcast.com/Logan, spelled Logan, and you'll be redirected to his author profile on creepypastastories.com, where you'll find a way to connect with him as well as a link to his Amazon page. As a reminder, voice actress Melissa Medina's work can be found on the official Chilling Tales for Dark Nights YouTube channel, as well as her website, hearmelissa.com. That's HearMelissa.com. Voice actor Paul J. McSorley's talents can be found on our very own Chilling Tales for Dark Nights YouTube channel, as well as on past episodes of the Simply Scary podcast. You can also keep up with him weekly on his new show, Fear from the Heartland, which will debut in podcast form in early 2022. Meanwhile, capture the magic, or the madness, from the very beginning, and check out his show on our YouTube channel today. You'll be glad you did, and after dropping by, don't forget to let him know you heard about him here on this show. Now, our weekly descent into the depths has just about come to a close, but before we go, I'd like to take a moment to thank you for joining us tonight and remind you to take a moment to stop by our iTunes page and leave Chilling Tales for Dark Nights a 5-star review and a kind word, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram if you haven't already. And of course, subscribe to us on YouTube, where you can find an archive of our work going back to 2012. Also, consider signing up as a patron at our website, chillingtalesfordarknights.com, to show your support and get all of our content ad-free. I'm your host, Otis Gyrie, and as always, it's been a pleasure. Tune in again next week when we once again turn off the lights and turn on the dark. Sweet dreams, listener. Sweet dreams.
Chilling Tales for Dark Nights. Chilling Tales for Dark Nights.